Only if you're doing work. Only for work.
Bob.
Hi, I'm Bob Sardi. Welcome back to Hornby Island.
Pleasure.
The Liberals have been in power for 11 years now.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit of time to get things done. I'm wondering why BC still has the second worst rate for income disparity in the country and the worst rate for child poverty. Why is all these other provinces doing better than us now?
Right on.
Now you're talking, well, child poverty is good. You know, the reality is the politics in the legislature are left and right, both sides, right?
11 years though.
Yep.
Can't blame it on the NDP now.
No, but to be honest, if we went back to 1991, child poverty was
Well,
bad.
now you're trying to blame it on
No, I'm not blaming
else.
it. But I'm just saying, 1991, 99, and one of the reasons is the LICO test, which is not really a good test. One of the major pieces there.
Which?
LICO, I can't remember what it stands for, but it's what the poverty
Always been
organization.
cut off?
To be honest, I don't remember the acronym. But one of the big factors is we skew in British Columbia, and always will, is because our price of housing is high. That's a key factor. You know, in 2003 to 2008, which is BC Liberal time, child poverty has decreased by 40% in the province. But the reality is, there's still a huge percentage of kids who are under the poverty level. And that is not right. There are lots of factors why, you know, and we need to do more. And British Columbia, like many jurisdictions, spends about 10% of its budget on social services. So that's about $4 billion. We need to spend it better. You know, and CLBC is in the news all the time right now, and there's some challenges there, and we try to adjust. But the reality is we do need to do better. There's no doubt about it. But there's many factors that cause this, and you know, why does BC have the highest divorce rate in the country? I don't know the answer to that.
I'm not blaming that on the Liberals.
No, but one thing we don't. Yeah, but when you do have the highest divorce rate, you also have the highest number of single mothers, and it doesn't make a difference what jurisdiction you are. Single mothers statistically are in a very poor place, literally and figuratively, right? And so we need to work on that. So the reality is, I would argue, 2003 to 2008, there was some market improvement. But it doesn't mean rest on your laurels and say you've done enough. We do need to continue to do more. And BC as well, which I love British Columbia. I think it's a great place to live. It's also a great place to migrate to, in terms of like you go to East Hastings in Vancouver. It is not British Columbia residents solely living there. You know, every year you have individuals coming from other parts of the country to live in the Lower Mainland in Victoria.
Same as the Comox then?
And same with Comox. You don't want to live on the streets in Winnipeg in November and January. It's just the way it is. In Alberta, in the time when in the 1990s, and you know, maybe good in politics, maybe good economics, but you're buying bus tickets and sending people living to British Columbia. You know, that's kind of a bizarre country we live in. I think BC needs to do more as a government, but I think as well the country needs to look at this as a whole issue, because you know, maybe the city of Courtenay would argue, if we do a whole bunch for homelessness, are we solving the homeless problem, or are we just going to bring in problems from Campbell River and Port Hardy and such? And so, you know, you have different communities fighting against each other. I think it would be better to have a national policy, but I'll continue to push for it. It's not good enough. No one's ever said it has been, but I think it's got better in the last couple of years.
Not proportional to the other provinces, though.
I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, we're still down at the bottom,
but
both those categories.
You can't solve that problem overnight.
But 11 years.
Yeah, 40% improvement in that. What they do is there's always a time lag on terms of the stats, and I don't know the stats, like the latest stats are from 2008, so we know 2003, 2008. When the new ones come out, which are provided by StatsCan, then we can look at those ones. And you know what, maybe the government will look horrible when those stats come out. But the numbers we have, there was market improvement. But we are starting, and we are moving in the direction.
I've got Richard and Janet and, I'm sorry, Chris. Richard.
I was hoping that we'd exhaust one topic at a time. I'll go back to the smart meters. If I currently run my generator with the power off, and my analog meter will run backwards right now when I run that generator. And if it runs backwards, and I'm feeding my neighbors, I actually have to shut off that source, or they'll use up the generate take the power I'm generating.
Right, okay, I guess so, I'm not a physicist, but I'll take your word for it, sounds good.
So this information that caused this $910 million to be spent on this program and to give it a go-ahead is more than 2 years old, and so is the research. My understanding is when John Blatherwick was explained that he underwrote it, saying at the time there was only 2 seconds of electromagnetic generation during the day, he wasn't explained sufficiently that these were microbursts and happened 24/7, and that in many areas there was going to be a master transmitter, one many times more powerful, that collected the local results and rebroadcast them, and you wouldn't have any idea whether you had one of these or not. The Smart Meter program is a global initiative. It's very little to do with BC Hydro, and it is a mechanism simply for reselling power. Now, if you look around this room, BC Hydro was on about buying CFL bulbs. They even gave you samples of them years ago. Now we have a monstrous problem in what to do with burnt out and broken ones. They're an environmental hazard. People argue, well, you got to shut some of the lights out to save power. Well, this isn't true in an electrically heated room, because this 100 watts and that 100 watts is all producing heat for this room, and those wall heaters just shut down sooner. So there's a false saving here.
Except if you're heating your house with electricity from your 100-watt bulbs, you are going to break yourself financially.
Well, if you already have electric heat, I guess that's the point I'm making. If your space heater is where your pump is and where your electric water heater is, and you're heating a basement, then you're not losing, even in the summer, you're not losing heat. It's false economy. And the next thing that occurred to me was that the Minister of Agriculture needs at some point to admit that the biggest gross and cash income in this province is from marijuana growth.
I told the Minister, Solicitor General that yesterday. I did, but with a jokingly face, by the way.
And it's not even just here, it's also in California and likely Oregon and other jurisdictions.
Yeah.
So this witch hunt to find who has grow-ups, most of these sophisticated operations have their own generators and they don't want a leaking outside source to tattle on them. Anyway, these smart meters are eminently hackable. They're as hackable as anything else that's online. And to go back to the 80s, the satellite industry proved that when they introduced gold chips, which is the new phenomenon in bank cards now, they introduced those in the early 90s and they were hacked within months. So none of this technology is proven, and you'll notice that one of the schools in Quesnel actually banned the Wi-Fi. They shut the Wi-Fi down. They've gone back to hardwiring because it's elementary students and they don't feel the exposure is a requirement. We go up to the ferry issue. I didn't take notes, I'm sorry, and I didn't know we were going to do subject by subject or speakers by
We've kind of informally making it up as we go in a sense,
Right.
but it's good. Could we come back to the ferries after, as another question, Richard, if we get some other...
Well, I'm just responding to what I've heard. That's what I'm trying to say. These ferries have received many updates since the original installation in '72, when ferries presented the new $18.5 million expenditure, which, believe me, was a huge surprise to us. The commissioners were empowered and made to go around and do a review and see what should be spent where, and this money, someone earmarked this huge amount. If we had that much amount, we'd certainly would have wanted to put it into a new vessel. And I don't know what the Islands Trust does as a body. A committee never comes up with something that pleases everyone. On this route, and Andenman, we are paying $12 a nautical mile for carrying a car and driver. And if you go and compare that off of BC Ferry's own website, mostly trips in the Southern Gulf can be had for under $2 a nautical mile. At $12 a nautical mile, if you were to show up at Duke Point and say, how far is it to Tsawwassen? And they'd say 20 miles. Well, we're asking for $240. I don't know how you'd feel about wanting to pay that amount. The people that have been on committees continually here since 1986, elected representatives and volunteers, have stood by and presided over a tenfold increase in ferry fares. And to my way of thinking, they need to step aside and something different has to happen. The Liberals can't say that they're working on it because, well, a few conventions ago they took that title away from the Liberal Party when there were 3 Gordons contesting the leadership. So basically, if you hearken back to W.A.C. Bennett's Social Credit Party, that's the party that's running things right now, and they need to look at the original goals that Bennett had in mind.
Thanks, Richard.
I'll go on another time.
Thank you. Is there any response, Don?
No, I don't think there's more response than question was it, so. Good points.
Janet and Alan and...
I'll try to be shorter too, because Diane, we're supposed to be off, what time are we supposed to be leaving?
You have
Around
to talk
2:30?
till 3:30.
Yeah, I think that was a miscommunication, unfortunately. So we're gonna talk, I'll talk fast, I won't give long-winded answers, it won't be 10
Yeah, well, I'm not
questions.
even gonna ask a question, I'm just gonna make
We've
a
got
comment.
3/4 of an hour. Yeah. And we're doing fine, and I think there'll be time for general chit-chat as well.
Yeah, all I would like to ask you, and I've already seen you this morning, so I'm not gonna be a hog here, but I'd really love to know that whenever you see an email or a phone call come across your desk and it's from the Hornby Islanders Secure Land Association, our affordable housing project, you met Bernard and Michael, that you really give it good attention, because housing for our people that can't afford the land prices on Hornby, huge issue, and we really need your support and your interest. I don't know what you can do for us, but I want to know that when you see ISLA, the red lights go on.
The easiest thing to do is sometimes I have 5 different email accounts. I think the record was, I think Diane said one time we got 3,000 emails over a 2-day period. We try our very best to get all the emails we can and then push them to the right places. I don't get to see them all.
Just remember, we're family.
Yeah, no, but when you send an important email, if you don't get a response back that you think, what's going on there, call the office. You know, one thing is we have Diane and Star in the office in Courtney.
Good.
Or call me in Victoria if you think I'm down in Victoria.
Good.
Because don't assume in the literally thousands of emails, whether ministry related or Comox Valley related or just spam, that we catch every single one. When I first was elected as MLA, Diana was saying, are you getting all your emails? And we didn't realize we didn't have part of the email hooked up to the office. And we didn't answer any emails for the first 2 months because the government didn't hook up our email to our computers properly. So mistakes happen. So don't
What's your
assume.
address? Just kidding.
We'll give you cards when we leave. Start.
Thank you. Alan?
Thanks, Mr. McRae, for being here. I'm a retired engineer. My wife's a retired nurse. We've lived here for 11 years and have generally enjoyed very good health until the last few weeks. We've had 3 crises in the last 5 weeks. I won't go into details about them, but I'll just point out that the first crisis was dealt with, it happened at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it was dealt with at 10 o'clock at night at Campbell River Hospital. The second crisis occurred in the middle of the night, and that was dealt with at Comox Hospital. The third crisis happened last week and was dealt with at Nanaimo. This is an area that's rapidly growing. We've had this question of the 1 or 2 new hospitals in the area, because Comox and Campbell River are both substandard, and even Nanaimo is under a lot of further development. It scarcely meets the needs of that area. Currently, as I understand it, there's going to be 2 hospitals, a new one at Campbell River and a new one at Courtney. The one at Courtney's had a set to because the consultant who chose the first site failed to investigate the fact that it encroached on the flight paths of the Comox airport. That is hard to believe, that. And to know that some of the Crown Isle buildings still encroach on the flight path, and they're going to have to introduce flight restrictions at Comox Airport. Something is very wrong there. I don't know who's responsible. They're now thinking of moving the location of the Courtney Hospital to the area near Home Depot behind the college. Something's wrong here. Many of the staff that we spoke to at Campbell River, and I must say the staff treated us extremely well in all these three locations. The standard is so high, it's remarkable. But many of the staff at Campbell River commute daily from Courtney. If that's the case, I think the time is right now to go back to one single decent-sized hospital halfway between Campbell River and Courtney. You have one expenditure on infrastructure, you have one expenditure on administration, one expenditure on modern technical equipment. Why duplicate it? Something is very wrong with a duplicated system. We need one hospital to serve the northern part of the island. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, we could do that, and I advocated for it, and Campbell River voted against it, right? And the reality is, policy is controlled from Oyster River to the north of the island, right? So are we having one hospital or two, okay? On the local hospital district, right? The Comox Strathcona Hospital District. The money vote is controlled from Oyster River to Fanny Bay. That decides how you're going to pay for the hospital. There is a huge, I think, no matter what happens, Campbell River needs a hospital in its community, because if you have an industrial accident on a fishing boat or a logging accident in Gold River, there is this 45-minute window that is a sort of life window. Campbell River needs to keep you alive to get there. Comox Valley is a much larger hospital when it's built. It'll be 165 beds. Now, unfortunately, I've been in politics a long time. I don't know what exactly is going to be there till the day it opens. We all walk around it. But I hope it better be 165 beds. 96% of your hospital needs will be in the Comox Valley Hospital. Most people don't get sick that often and don't realize when you break your leg on the wrong day at the wrong time of night that your anesthesiologist is not able to be in both places because we don't have enough staff. The Comox Valley Hospital is not called a regional hospital, but it is a regional hospital in all intents and purposes, built also to expand down the road. If we want to go back to relook at the one hospital model, Campbell River will not support it. We can play politics for a whole bunch of time, and maybe by 2019 we'll have some new hospitals in the North Island, maybe. The reality is we started this process when they started the new tower for VGH in Victoria. They have the hospital up and going. We played politics for 3 years. And not because people are mean or nasty or anything like that, it's just people are advocating for their communities, and government's always going to look for a reason not to spend dollars when they don't need to. So if you don't have your ducks in a row. And the reality is, we need to build a hospital that's going to serve the North Island residents, in my opinion, just like it did for me in St. Joe's. I was born there in 1970. It's built in 1930. It's got better bones than the Campbell River one does. They're both tragic in terms of some areas of improvement. The hospital that gets built will be something we need to build for 50 years. We can argue about the site. I'm just really thankful that VHA did not waste time. They realized they were in the wrong spot. They thought they could defeat Department of National Defense. They thought they could beat out NAVCAN and Transport Canada. And instead of wasting their time for 18 months and finding out they were going to lose in the end, because you always lose to D&D. And if you win against D&D, you'll always lose to NAVCAN. They decided to move on and get the damn thing built. And regardless of when I was running for the 2009 election, over and over again people said they want the hospital built. I will have the hospital started before I leave office, whether I win the next election or not. That simple.
We've got Chris and Case and Jan. Sorry, and Jan. Chris, Case, and Jan, and Stephanie. Chris.
Yes, Chris. Again, thank you, Don, for being here. It's great. About the ferries, I think there's a whole debate that needs to happen, a whole study that needs to happen, but what our real alternatives are. 3 times over recent years, I've been at BC Ferries presentations, and I've pointed out to the staff, in one case it was the Vice President, that two of the Gulf Islands that are currently served by ferries are quite bridgeable gaps, Gabriola and Denman. And in each of these three cases, I was given the same answer. BC Ferries' mandate is to run ferries. We don't build bridges. So there really is a need for some political oversight here to see what our options are. If they were to go for a cable ferry, and before we even look at that, we should give pause, because we've tried to push the technology of ferries twice in recent decades, one with the cats, fast cats, and one with the German-built ones. In each case, there were problems by building a bigger ferry of a type that had ever been tried before. The cable ferry to Denman will be much bigger than any other cable ferry for that length of operation. So we're pressing the envelope here, and it could backfire. But if we were to go that route, it represents a commitment of at least, I would guess, $200 million. Base that on the following. Currently, the Denman ferry costs about $7.5 million a year to run. If we were to achieve an economy of, they project, it might be more like $6 million a year in terms of present dollars. If we play that forward for, say, a 30-year lifetime of the ferry, there's $180 million, plus the cost of building a new ferry, plus the cost of building the new ramps, which would be another $15 or $20 million. So we're talking over $200 million. What kind of fixed link could we actually build for that price? Is it possible that something in that range is possible?
Well,
I
won't be your advocate for a fixed link, by the way.
Sorry?
I wouldn't advocate for a fixed link.
Well, it surely is an option that it should be looked at, because it might be cheaper in the long term.
Well,
We have a problem with burning fossil fuels. If we don't have to run diesel engines 17 hours a day, that's something we need to think about right there. The other thing is the effect on the island's economy. We're all getting kind of gray around here. Our schools are empty. It's very, very difficult for young families to survive economically on the islands. And as long as fares keep going up, we're looking at this as an exclusive domain of retired folk, and that's an economic time bomb in itself because of the health needs. So it seems to me we really need to look at the alternatives. I don't think there is a simple answer to how much a bridge costs. I noticed when they talked about replacing the Champlain Bridge, an old bridge in Montreal, which was built not that long ago, there was an uncertainty factor for just replacing an existing bridge. Even if we had a single lane bridge, the turnaround time to cross would be less than 10 minutes for anyone.
I just think, I see when people propose the theoretical bridge from Vancouver Island to Vancouver and think about the complaint of the lack of consensus on the island.
Well,
And I think the lack of consensus on Denman would make it, politically untenable. I think it's good to think about it. I think it's good to explore the options, because I think that's what good organizations need to do. But if it does cost $180 million, I haven't heard that cost, but I'm not saying you're wrong. I haven't looked into it at all. I think I'd be surprised that BC Ferries would say they want to use that much capital dollars with no chance of recooing it for 30 years.
Thank you. Case.
My name is Kees. I'd like to visit the smart meter again. I heard you say that you think the smart meter is a good idea.
Yep.
Because you think then in 2013 you can sell potential power
No, I
back.
didn't say that. I said you can monitor your power usage in 2013.
You can
They can monitor your power use by going online. You can look at your bill as it goes up, I think daily or maybe hourly. But the other thing you can do is you have potential to sell into the grid. You don't do that now.
So that's what you think was a good feature.
Yeah.
Another good feature I thought was that you can sit on your computer to see if the baseboard heater in the basement is on, right?
Yeah.
You did not mention at all about the health effects, these cell phone towers or these smart meters on every house talking to each other. You did make no mention of that. Later on you mentioned that the health budget is way over.
No, it's not way over, it's just what it is.
Well, what it is, yeah, okay, what it is. It's like, aren't you not aware of the potential health risk a smart meter on every house in BC can cause the people of BC? Are you not aware of that?
I've seen the literature that was put out by when I was in Vancouver recently, there was people giving out literature. And to be honest, to convince me that they're right, they need to have better validators for their science. I don't know where the University of Malmo is, but,
That'd be in Sweden.
I know that, but I don't even know if it's a real school. The reality is, there are certain validators for good science when it comes to medical research, and they didn't have ones that I, as a layman, recognized. When you have to pull your experts, and I'm not saying the experts are wrong, I'm just saying that to convince me, as just Don McRae, not as an elected official, I want things like respected journals of medicine that we know in North America. And there are people with PhDs who will say a whole bunch of things. I'm not saying they're wrong. Their research leads them in a certain direction.
But how come you believe the outcome? You have it the other way around. Like your reports don't do it for me. And it should be that you should show that it's safe, opposed to me showing that it's not safe. And you can't show me that it's safe. Nobody can show it's safe. And there's so many reports that is a non-safe thing. And so I would like to ask just the people here, just to give myself an idea, of a show of hands who would oppose having a smart meter cell phone tower on their house on Hornby or wherever. I'd like to see so you know kind of what place. We don't want that.
But at the same time, we do know that the number of people in British Columbia who say, when we talked about the potential 50% rate increase of hydro that was coming down the pipe, what percentage of BC citizens would be supportive of paying 50% more for hydro if they didn't have to? The answer is, I would say everybody would put up their hand. And I think one of the jobs of government is to find that balance using new technology. And I agree, the precautionary principle gives reasons never to do anything. And I understand people, I have a cell phone in my pocket as I'm talking to you. Does it come with a health risk? You know what, I don't know if it's
turn it off right now, then it's not a health.
Yeah, but the other thing is, I do know in British Columbia, if we were a nation, we would have the longest lived men and the second longest lived women in the world. We are a very well subscribed and healthy society. Is it perfect? By all means, we can criticize little pieces of it. But on this one, and that's one of the joys of being in government. We differ in opinion. And sometimes when you take a leadership position, you tick people off and then you vote against me, which I understand. It's so hard to leave because it's so easy to sit there and study and then get nothing done. And that's the challenge. And then so as soon as you make a move that you think has good consequences, you open yourself to criticism. And that's fair. We live in a democratic society and I'm glad we do.
The consequences of the good don't weigh to the potential consequences of the bad in this case.
Oh, well,
you open a can of worms which is way bigger than you could imagine.
Thanks,
and there's also people who think you shouldn't immunize your children, right? And they're entitled to that opinion, and I totally disagree with them. There are also people who think that raw milk should be allowed, and pasteurization has saved millions and millions of people. People are allowed to have their opinion.
That's right. So I urge the people here to check out smart meters because it's...
But also, like everything, arguments are balanced. Make sure you know the bias of both sides when you're looking into it.
We've got Stephanie, Jan, and Christine. Stephanie.
Yes.